ladies and gentlemen, Erev Tov and Chodesh Tov. I'd very much like to welcome all of you here this evening, and may I ask that you now kindly turn off or mute your cell phones. I think I've just done mine, and please do that. It can be very disturbing, as you know, to hear it. Before I introduce Dr Mordechai Kedar, may I tell you about a forthcoming joint shul event with the Henry Core Library. It will actually be the Tisha B'Av program on Sunday, the 11th of August 2019 at 4:30 p.m. in the Shul Hall. The lecturer is Rabbi David Wolf, whom most of you know, and he will discuss the events and background of Tisha B'Av.
Turning it off.
Well, better late than never. As you know, David Wolf is a very well-known Maggid Shir in the neighbourhood, and I'm sure that it will be a very fascinating discourse which he'll give about Tisha B'Av. That's on Sunday, the 11th of August, 4:30 in here. There will be announcements in due course. Jacques will no doubt make a very nice collage or whatever. So now I have much pleasure in again welcoming Dr Mordechai Kedar to McDonald's, and to thank him for spending some of his very precious time here with us. I will now introduce him to give his lecture, and afterwards I'm sure that he will answer our questions. I also should say that I'm very grateful that he's managed to make it here this evening, bearing in mind all the traffic problems arising from the killing of the Ethiopian young man. So, Dr Mordechai Kedar was born in Tel Aviv in 1952. In 1982 he received a BA in Arabic and Political Science from Bar-Ilan University. He is fluent in Hebrew, English and Arabic. He served as a lieutenant colonel in the Israel Defense Forces, military intelligence, as head of a branch in the high-tech 8,200 unit, and was on active duty until 1995. He has been teaching at Bar-Ilan University since 1994 in the Department of Arabic and Middle Eastern Studies, and in 1998 received a PhD in Arabic Studies from Bar-Ilan University. His areas of research are Islam, Islamic movements, gender issues in Islam, Arabic mass media, popular culture, state and society in the Arab world. Dr. Kedar is now an assistant professor, he may be a professor by now, at Bar-Ilan University. He is director of the Center for the Study of the Middle East and Islam, under formation at the time, and a research associate at the Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies, both at Bar-Ilan University. He also writes a weekly analysis about the Middle East for the Israeli Makor Rishon, and has published many academic publications. He's been married for 44 years to Raina, who was born in New York, grew up in Brookline, Massachusetts, and made Aliyah in 1971. They have 5 children, and so far, I've got down here 10 grandchildren, but Motti, any more since we've written this? Apparently 10 grandchildren. So, I have much pleasure in asking Dr. Mordechai Kedar to address us, and his subject is Deep Insights into the Middle East Situation. Dr. Kedar, Motti, please take over.
Thank you so much for this introduction. Yet, I'm rather embarrassed when people give the whole thing, because it raises the expectations, sometimes to heights which I find hard to meet. Thank you so much anyway. Just for the grandchildren, numbers 14 and 15 are on the way. It's just to put things in place. Ladies and gentlemen, usually people talk about the Middle East from their memory of 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. This is more or less what our memory reaches. Yet, the powers which shake the Middle East are way much older than our memory. Just the Sunni-Shi'i rift, which we all heard about and are familiar with and are aware of, especially since the invasion to Iraq of 2003, like 16 years ago, which erupted again wave of violence between these two communities in Iraq because of the lawlessness which came upon this country because of the deterioration or dismantling of the state at the war of 2003, when the United States and its allies, friends and allies, as George W. Bush used to say, our friends and allies, invaded Iraq and dismantled the army, the police, the government organizations, and this lawlessness actually was the cause for the re-eruption of the Sunni-Shi'i rift, which was in the bottle inside Iraq under Saddam. He himself was a Sunni, but the Sunni in Iraq are the minority. And minority always has no legitimacy to control and to rule over the majority. This is why he needed to be a dictator, vicious as he was, killer as he was, only because he was viewed as illegitimate because he represented the minority. So this is the rift of the Sunni Shia only in Iraq, let alone other places like Iran, Syria, which also is some derivative of the Sunni Shi'i rift. Lebanon, of course, what we saw through the years, the civil wars in Lebanon. We see clashes between Sunni and Shia in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, and actually it also invades Europe because these two populations today are the migrants to Europe, and here and there you can already see the tensions which they brought from the homelands are active in Europe as well. Now, when you ask somebody today when this whole thing started, those who remember the last, let's say, 16 years, of course, since the invasion of America and its friends and allies, Britain included, to Iraq and to the war. Until then, we never heard about this. Some will tell you, no, we already remember clashes in 1991 in the aftermath of the first Gulf War, when masses of Shia ran away to Ali, to Najaf, and they thought that they are in an asylum in this place, but Saddam Hussein's the Sunni bombed them with artillery inside the court, killed who knows how many thousands of people who were trying to find asylum in that place. So you already see this in 1991. If you want to go even deeper to history, you go to 1982, to the massacre of Hamat in Syria, when the Alawis, who are derivative of Shia, killed Sunnah already in 1982. So this is more or less our memory, and this is what people say. The real thing is that this rift, or this struggle between the Sunnah and the Shia, started in the year of 632 CE. Meaning almost 14 centuries ago. In 13 years from today, it will be 14 centuries. What do they fight on? already then. Why did they start quarreling? On what? The legacy of Muhammad, the heritage. Who will be the successor? Whether it will be his cousin and son-in-law, Muhammad's cousin and son-in-law, Ali bin Abi Talib, who married Muhammad's daughter and was the fourth caliph, or all the others who took the caliphate from him and kicked him out from the caliphate. Those who followed Ali and his descendants until the end of time as the real legitimate rulers of Islam are the Shia. Now Shia, the word Shia in Arabic is parallel to Hebrew Si'ah. Shin and Samech interchange, like Shams, Shemesh, okay? Shi'at Ali means the Si'ah of Ali. Those who support Ali, the faction, if you want, of Ali. This is the Shia. Those who support the others who took the caliphate from Ali and kicked him away are the Sunnah. And they are killing each other for 14 centuries until this very day, and nobody sees really in the horizon any end to this struggle. And with the mass media today, and the social media, and television, and everything, the struggle becomes even more acute, more bloody, because now they can incite each other through the TV, through the internet, through websites, through WhatsApp, through all kinds of other things, which serve this struggle and make the flames even higher. This is how history is part of current issues in the Middle East. We Westerners, we don't take history in such seriousness. Look, just imagine that you remember what happened in 2000 in the elections for the American presidency, where George W. Bush and Al Gore were competing with each other. And America was divided almost half and half, and only Florida was the tipping point, and Florida had some problem with how they vote, so it was unclear. So they went to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court decided what they decided. Florida became of Bush, and Bush became the president for 4 years, another 4 years, and America had the president. Imagine that America is divided. The United States of America are divided between red and blue, between Bush and Al Gore, and these two sides are fighting each other in all-out war for 14 centuries. Okay? This is exactly the Sunni-Shia problem. They fight on the question who was the real caliph of Islam in the year of 632 when Muhammad died. Okay, so this is this. So we came to a culture which doesn't go to the Supreme Court, doesn't go to any court, fights each other, kill each other en masse, because this is the culture of this area which we live in, the Middle East. When we come to current issues, and this Sunni-Shia problem becomes the name of the game, here we start messing with questions which people don't get. They don't even understand what happens here. Let me show you some. First of all, let's go to the map. And the most acute problem of today's Middle East is the problem between Iran and its neighbors, or the Arab world, or the rest of the Middle East, because we are also included in this problem. And the game is not over yet in Iran, although to the last 2 weeks the flames are lower. But if you remember what happened only 2 weeks and more ago, when Iran is attacking oil tankers in international waters, this is totally unacceptable. And in a normal world, this should have been a casus belli, a cause for a war. A state which attacks international waters, ships which, cargo ships or oil cargo ships, which sail in the international waters, this is something which is totally against the whole world, against the whole world order. This is something which cannot, should not be acceptable by any state in the world, whether you support Iran or not. Then they attacked Saudi Arabia also, some oil facility, and definitely Iran plays with fire. And when you play with fire in an area which is so full of gas fumes as the Gulf is, this is very, very dangerous to everybody, including us. So if we try to look at that part of the world to understand what happens there, let's look at the map. This is the map. And I want to focus on this area, because this is today the most dangerous area in the world. We see two major powers, Iran on one side and Saudi Arabia on the other side. And these two powers are fighting each other on third-party countries for at least 9 years. Yemen, a vicious war between the government, which is supported by Saudi Arabia, and the rebels, the Houthi rebels, who are supported by Iran. We see it in Iraq already since 2003, when Saudi Arabia supports the Sunni minority, while Iran supports the Shia majority, and they fight each other on the soil of Iraq, on the big expense of the Iraqi blood. We see it in Syria, where Saudi Arabia was, and maybe still is, supporting the Sunni rebels against the regime which is supported by Iran, with all kinds of support, money, militias who come to Syria to support the regime, and training, weapons, whatever the regime needs, it gets from Iran, at least until recently, until the economic problems reduced the Iranian support to other parties. We saw it also in Lebanon, another country which is inflicted by tensions between the communities, especially when it comes to the Sunni and the Shia communities in Lebanon. The Sunni were led by the Hariri family. So the Hezbollah, which is supported by Iran, blew up the leader of the family, Rafik al-Hariri, in 2004, and were forced to leave. The Syrians, who actually gave the umbrella to Hezbollah in those times, until this very day, were forced to leave Syria by the decision of the Security Council of the United Nations. Saudi Arabia supports the Hariris, at least recently, and the tension and the civil wars which were in Lebanon were also, especially since 1980, were influenced by the tension between Saudi Arabia and Iran, who supported conflicting sides of this struggle. And if you really want, you can see Gaza as another part of the world which is supported by Iran. Hamas is supported, but definitely the Islamic Jihad in Gaza, who are fighting against Israel, which behind the scenes is supported by Saudi Arabia, especially the recent years. So here also you see a struggle which these two countries are supporting conflicting sides. So at least in 5 arenas, Saudi Arabia and Iran are fighting each other. The Saudi support to the rebels in Iraq and Syria is in a sharp decline during the last 2 years, mainly because of the economic problems of Saudi Arabia. Yes, Saudi Arabia, the country which has the biggest oil reserves in the ground, faces problems, financial problems, because of the expenses of the wars which Saudi Arabia was supporting in Yemen, especially in Iraq, in Syria, and in Lebanon. It reduced the support, and this is one of the reasons that the rebels in Syria actually had to surrender to the government under the pressure of the Hezbollah and the other Shi'i militias, and of course the Russian bombing and the regime which came or which regained some power through the last few years. So definitely the decline of the Saudi support weakened its allies in other countries. Iran also faces big economic problems because of the American sanctions and the fact that almost all the countries except for China and Russia stopped business with Iran because of the sanctions. Even India, which was one of the biggest customers of Iran's oil and gas, actually reduced its purchase of gas and oil from Iran because of the American sanctions which Trump imposed on Iran. So today, the income of the oil and gas which Iran gets is between 30 and 40% of what it could have and what the Iranian budget is based upon. Now imagine that the Israeli government has to deal with only 40% of its budget in order to run the country. The health system, the road system, and all the other systems. It is totally impossible to a modern state to run. Here, if you reduce 1% or 2%, all kinds of ministers start shouting and screaming. Imagine cutting 60%, 6-0. So definitely, the hardships of Iran definitely influence its ability to support its allies in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon. Hezbollah now has to beg money in all kinds of Islamic communities all over the world because Hezbollah is in big problems. So both countries suffer from economic problems. I believe that the Iranian problems are more acute than the problems of Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia doesn't suffer from sanctions, and while Iran does. Another problem between the two countries is the hegemony on the Gulf, the political hegemony, which of course has financial and economic aspects. Yet, if you look at the two sides of the Persian Gulf, you can see that on one side, from this point, from the border between Iraq and Iran, all the way to Pakistan, you have one country, one state, one army, which is the Iran, one agenda, and one, I would say, iron fist. On the other side, you have, like for 12 countries at least, you have Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, and 7 more countries which are united in the United Arab Emirates. The Emirates, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Ras Al Khaimah, Fujairah, those countries. Now, just to make it clear, the United Arab Emirates are not united like New York, New Jersey, Oklahoma, Iowa, and Florida. They are united more like Germany, France, Belgium, Holland, and Spain. You get the difference? New York, New Jersey, Oklahoma, and Florida are not sovereign, because in the United States of America, the sovereignty belongs to the Union. Okay? The army belongs to the United States of America, not to New York and not to New Jersey. The foreign policy is under the jurisdiction of the central government of Washington, D.C., not New York and not New Jersey, not, okay? While in Europe, Germany, France, and so forth, each and every one of these countries, in spite of the Union, every country is sovereign, is independent, and separate from each other. Okay, they united the currency, they united some other things, but the states remained sovereign states, unlike New York and New Jersey. Okay, this is a big difference. And these United Arab Emirates are sovereign. Every one of them is sovereign. Dubai is sovereign. Abu Dhabi is sovereign. Okay, this is why they look more like Europe than the United States of America. They didn't unite the economy. In spite of the fact that the dinar is united, the economy is not. Means every state, every emirate has its own budget, own taxes, and they are separate. Okay, so they united the currency, they united the defensive power, means the coastal guard. They united the foreign policy, that's all. They didn't unite the police, they didn't unite the economy, and they didn't unite the regime. Every one of them has its own emir who controls its own emirate regardless of the others, except for the security and foreign policy. So this is the United Arab Emirates. That's why I count them as 7 countries, 7 states. So you have 7 here, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, if you count Yemen. So 12 countries, these 12 countries have very little in common. Although they are all Arabs and they live in the Arab Peninsula, they share almost nothing. Qatar is in bed with Iran, while Saudi Arabia is a vile enemy of Iran. Okay? This, by the way, one of the reasons for the tension between Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and the siege which Saudi Arabia put on Qatar. Today to Qatar you can come either by the air or from the sea. You cannot come from Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia blocked the border between Saudi Arabia and Qatar. And they try to boycott them and all kinds of things. Qatar so far is supported by Iran, of course, supported by Turkey, supported by others. But many countries in the Arab world turn their back to Qatar and they boycott Qatar because of the behavior of this emirate. The United Arab Emirates do have one policy, but under the undercurrents are not always the same. Oman has its own policy, Yemen is sinking in a war, so definitely the other side of the Persian Gulf is weakened because of these differences and the rifts between all kinds of countries, especially when you compare it to Iran, which is so far one consolidated state. So the imbalance already creates, I would say, yitaron, advantage on the Iranian side vis-a-vis Saudi Arabia, which has all kinds of problems with its own neighbors. This is one thing. Another thing is that the Saudi oil industry is in this area, which is right under the noses of the Iranians. The width of the Gulf in this place is around 100 kilometers, which is nothing. The Iranians can hit the oil industry of Saudi Arabia with short-range missiles, and they can devastate the whole place, because this place has so many facilities, thousands of kilometers of pipes, of crude oil and refined oil, and they have refineries over there and oil rigs and so many facilities, and it is so easy to burn the whole place up and to devastate the Saudi economy totally. And the Iranians know it very well, and the Saudis know very well that they are very vulnerable vis-a-vis the Iranians. Not only this, on the other side as well, because this area of Iran is also the oil-producing oil of Iran, which is under the noses of the Saudis, who can, in retaliation, attack the Iranian facilities, just like the Iranians can do it to the Saudis. So this is why the tension is so high vis-a-vis this issue of the facilities of the oil. Another thing is that the population in this area of Saudi Arabia are Shia. Shia. And they emotionally side with the Iranians. And it is very easy for them to make problems if they want. They can run to the streets, they can start attacking all kinds of facilities, they can, look, if they only take some barrels of oil and they pour it on some autostrads, this will stop all the traffic. How can you run on streets, on roads which have oil on it, which somebody spilled? And it's not a big thing to do. You just take oil, or you buy this 1 gallon car oil, in the gas station, and you pour it from your car. You drive, and somebody else is pouring it, and then you block your whole autostrade. They can do it very easily. Even these things, not to mention other things which might be more inflammable or more combustible. So this is, and the Saudis know very well that the potential of this community, the Shia community, which can make problems to the government, is tremendous. They once in a while catch all kinds of activists and they just behead them. The Saudis. It happened 2 years ago when they actually beheaded the religious leader of the Shia in Iran. His name was Nimr al-Nimr, the Namer, the leopard. This was his name, and they beheaded him. Why not? Because he was a rebel. Okay? It really made a problem there, but they succeeded to hush the whole thing. And on the other side of the Gulf, this part of Iran is populated by Arabs. Arabs. Ahwaz, as they call it, this region. And Arabs definitely side with Arabs, not with the Persians. They consider their land, or this part of Iran, as occupied territories. That's how they call them since 1925, since they were annexed to Iran. Okay? So Iran has, I could say, mercenaries in Saudi Arabia, the Shia, while Saudi Arabia could use insurgency in Iran within the Arabs on the other side of the Gulf. So they actually hold one to the throat of the other, Iran and Saudi Arabia. Another problem, of course, we all know, the Sunni Shia, as we said, because the Iranians are led by the Persians, and the Persians are Shia, and they definitely are against the Sunnah, which controls Saudi Arabia. And not only they are Sunnah, the Saudis, they are one of the most extreme interpretation of Sunnah, the Wahhabi sect, which the Saudis belong to. So here you see vicious ayatollahs, Shia on the one side, and the other side you see the Saudis, the Wahhabis, definitely put peace between these two parts of Islam is very hard, especially since the Wahhabis consider the Shia to be some kinds of heresy. They are not Muslims, according to the Wahhabism. So it's that deep the problem is. Okay, but the Iranians also have policy minority, just like the Saudis. And with the Shia here, the Iranians have here in this part of the country the Baluchis, which is another ethnic group, very small ethnic group of like 20 million people, like almost twice the size of the Jewish people. Who heard about the Baluchis? They are divided between Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. In Afghanistan and Pakistan, they are more or less free because these two countries are dysfunctional, while in Iran, they are still oppressed by the Iranian regime, and they actually rebel against it, and they actually have a militia named Jundullah, means the army of Allah, which they use as a terror organization against trains, against cars, and they fight almost every week. There is an attack of this Jundullah against something which belongs to the Iranian regime. Another group which makes threats to the Iranian regime are the Kurds, who live in this part, in northwest part of Iran, and they actually are the continuation of the Kurds in Turkey, in Syria, and in Iraq. So this is actually the Kurdish land which was divided after the First World War between Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. So that the Kurds in Iran also have some militias which fight the central regime, and the central regime has some headache because of this insurgency as well. Not in vain, these two minorities, the Kurds and the Baloch, are Sunnis. Okay? So here you are. It's not only different ethnic group which feels oppressed by the central regime, it is also a different sect. So another good reason why to fight against the central regime. And after all, religion and sectarianism play very, very important role in history, politics, and security in the Middle East. But this, I would say, these things which I spoke about are more or less known, or people are aware of it, because they heard about the Gulf, hegemony, oil, and insurgencies here and there, people know about it. But there is something between Saudi Arabia and Iran which nobody talks about, and in my humble view, it is one of the most influential problems, if not the most influential. And this is something which happened in the history, which nobody talks about, because it is lo naim. Unpleasant? Lo naim is much. 7th century, the Arabs came out from the south, from this area, and occupied this area. 636, the Qadisiyah battle between the Iranian or the Persian Empire of those days. It was more or less in this point, named Qadisiyah, and for 3 days the two armies were fighting each other. According to the Islamic story, the Islamic army was more or less 10% in size of the Persian army. Means the Persian army was 10 times bigger than the Islamic army. Even if we take it as a kind of exaggeration, 5 times bigger, 4 times, 3 times, 2 times, okay, twice. Yet it was bigger. This army was defeated totally in 3 days. In those days they didn't have artillery, they didn't have tanks, they used to use swords and bayonets, camels, horses, donkeys. These were the vehicles, and the weapons were swords and bayonets, and maybe arrows and so this is what they had those days. The Islamic army was very, very highly motivated by the new religion of Islam, which gave them the lands of the infidels, the girls, the daughters of the infidels, the property of the infidels, and end of the day, the lives of the infidels. So they could take whatever they like. Until this very day, there are many of them who still believe that Islam gave them all these things. On the other side, there was a fatigued empire, very tired, very corrupt, very weak. First of all, Persians those days were professors of mathematics, astronomy, physics, chemistry, geometry, stereometry, means the geometry of the space, 3D geometry, and they actually had a computer named abacus. You know what abacus is? It's a Persian invention which allows you and enables you to make whatever calculation you want. Sinus, cosinus, logarithms, anything which can be computed can be calculated by an abacus. It takes a bit more time. And it needs you need memory, of course. But if you know how to operate the abacus, you can calculate whatever you like. They knew about astronomy way much more than the Europeans knew. They knew that the Earth revolves around the Sun. Europe discovered it 1,000 years later. They knew how to calculate the orbits of 7 planets which they knew about. 7 planets. They knew how to calculate the orbit of the moon around the Earth. And they knew how to calculate the Molada Levana, the birth of a new month. We learned from them this art of Kiddush HaChodesh, in Chishuv HaChodesh. We were using witnesses. Look at the Maseret Rosh Hashanah. But we learned from them, from the Persians, how to calculate the whole thing. And we changed the system. Okay? But they were corrupt. Professors, but they were corrupt. Their corruption actually is echoed in the Megillat Esther. The first chapter of Megillat Esther tells us about a mishteh, feast of 80 u'me'at yom. 180 days means half a year. These people were pickled, lying in the streets, vomiting, and you know what else? Because they were drunk. ובמלאת הימים האלה, when these days were completed, the 180 years, עשה המלך משתה 7 ימים לכל שריו ועבדיו, to the staff. 7 more days. 180 days were not enough. 7 more days only to get drunk in the palace. And not only this, he also wanted to invite Vashti, means his wife, to appear in front of everybody, Becheter Malchut, with her crown on her head. Now, according to all the commentators, Rak Becheter Malchut, only with a crown. Okay, she refused, for good reasons. Yoram Teharlev, the whole poem about this, לא מתאים לי ולא בא לי. Okay? Jump in the lake. So she was kicked out. Okay, so they were immersed in alcohol with all kinds of things with women. Okay, so these people cannot fight because an empire, as bright as it can be, as wise as it can be, as advanced as it can be, when it's corrupt, drunk, fools around with women, these soldiers cannot fight. And they were defeated shamefully by the Arabs, who were actually had a new shtick. They had a way how to kill people. They were riding a horse or a camel, and with a sword, harvesting his head, and the head should remain on the place. The man would collapse after like 2 or 3 seconds, because he's dead already. But to chop his head and to leave his head on the place. This was their expertise those days. By doing it when they are still riding on a horse or a camel. Okay? This was their shtick those days. And this is what they did to the soldiers of the Persians. Okay? They defeated them. And millions of Persians fell into their hands as prisoners of war. What are you going to do with them? Kill them? Chaval! Why kill them? Let's use them as slaves. So they took these professors to the marketplace and they sold them to slavery. How do you sell people to slavery in those days? You take a family, father, mother, children, you make them stand on a bench in the market, you strip them off totally so the buy persons can see the merchandise. Who buys Khatul Basak or a Persian in the sack? Let's see the merchandise. The man, his muscles, the woman, the kids, the girls, the boys. So one man buys the man, another one buys the woman, another one buys the girl, the son, the daughter. Okay? And you know exactly what they did with them, especially with the women and the girls. Okay? This is what the Arabs did to the Persians. And until this very day, the Persians did not forget and the Persians did not forgive. The Arabs who came from the Arab Peninsula and did exactly this to them in the slave marketplace. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what lies behind the hatred between Saudi Arabia and Iran. The Iranians call the Arabs lizard eaters. Look, the Arabs who did it to them were illiterate. Imagine a professor of mathematics or astronomy is being taken with his wife and children to the market by an illiterate. Somebody who thinks that Allah gave him the land, the life, the daughters, and the property of the infidels, although they are professors of mathematics, astronomy, and so forth. And this is actually what is behind the tension, the hatred between these two nations. Bad names they name each other. The Arabs, the Saudis, name the Persians Ajam. Ajam means people who do not know how to speak, because they don't know how to speak Arabic. Another bad name which they gave them is Mawali. Mawali is property, means people whom you can buy in the market. Schora, merchandise. Just imagine that you name somebody, hey, merchandise, come. It is very humiliating. And the Persians have bad names to the Arabs as well. For example, lizard eaters. And another one is the sons of Bedouins and female camels. Okay? As if they were born from that kind of relations. Okay? So these are the what is nobody talks about this. This is the popular culture. But this is what everybody knows and everybody feels, and this is how they despise the Arabs and they hate them because of what they did to them. And there are more things behind the scenes. I'll give you one example. Oops. You heard about Radio Sawa? Radio Sawa is a radio in Arabic which operates from Washington, D.C. They called me like at noon and asked me if at 9:30 I'll be free. So I thought we start at 8, by 9:30. Let's hope that they call me later. They want an interview about some conference which was today in Washington, which I have no idea about, but you know, you can always drag the interview to your area rather than talk about what the, you know, the first rule of an interview is no matter what the question is, you say what you want to say. And if you listen carefully to interviews, you see that the bright interviewees, I'm not going to say, oh, I'm so bright, but I follow others who do exactly this. They just couldn't care less about what they are asked, they say what they want, and this, okay? So, maybe this, but I'll give you one example. The Persians are sending every year pilgrims to the Hajj in Mecca. Now they consider Mecca as the city which belongs to them, because Ali bin Abi Talib, the founder of the Shia, the first caliph, was kicked out from Mecca. Medina as well, but definitely in the Hijaz. The Saudi family, which controls Saudi Arabia, of course, Ibn Saud and his descendants, the kings. King Salman today is the number 6 of the brothers. His predecessors, Abdullah and Fahad and Faisal and Khalid and Saud, okay, they are all half-brothers. The Iranians keep claiming that they have no right to control Mecca and Medina because, first of all, they are not from their place. Because they are from the Riyadh area. They are not from the Hijaz. So the king, already since Saud, names himself the custodian of the 2 holy places. Khadim al-Haramayn al-Sharifayn. Why? In order to shed a religious legitimacy on his kingdom. Although he is not from Mecca and Medina. The Shia say, means the Iranians say, who made you the king of Mecca and Medina? Why are you the custodian of Mecca and Medina? Who should be there? So there is a struggle over the leadership of Islam between the Sunni and the Shia, and Saudi Arabia here is in the eye of the storm. The Iranians send pilgrims, Olei Regel, to the Hajj every year, and every couple of years we hear about clashes between the Iranian pilgrims and the Saudi regime, the Saudi police. And in 1979, after the revolution in Iran, hundreds of Iranians were killed by the Saudi police because they tried to do something else against the customs of the Sunnah. Okay, so the struggle is there, and it happens once in a while, time and again. Not only this, the Saudi kind of Islam is very strict about not doing anything in a cemetery to keep people away from tomb worshipping. Means pulchan metim, to be as far as ubiquitous. When somebody is dying in Saudi Arabia, they take him to the cemetery. They bury him in the next slot, which is free, after somebody who was buried, let's say 2 or 3 hours earlier. They bury the man or a woman, they cover him, and they don't build any limestone on it, nothing. They only put a stone where the head of the deceased one is, just in order not to dig there for the next one. So when another one will die, they will take him to the next place. They don't buy places and they don't make any calculation. They just one after one after one after one. This is even the kings, even the Saudi kings are buried with everybody else without any limestone, any marking, nothing. Not only this, they never go to the cemetery afterwards. Even the askarot they do in the mosque or at home, they don't go to, in order to prevent any worshipping of the tomb. Okay, that's what they do. The Shia, on the contrary, they have all kinds of ceremonies. They go bring food and they pray to the dead man. To be a shafi'ah means meilitz yoisha, a mediator between me and God. Go to God and ask Him to pardon me for my sins, all these things. And they actually pray to the dead people, which is totally forbidden in the Wahhabi Islam. One day, the Saudis discover that the Iranian pilgrims who come to the Hajj, to Mecca, when they go back to Iran by buses, they go first to Medina, which is 180 kilometers to the north, and they go to a cemetery named Al-Baqiyah, which is a very ancient cemetery. Already the family of Muhammad were buried there. And they go to the cemetery and they make all kinds of hafla, building food and drinks, and they pray there and they dance and they pray to the people there who are buried to go to Allah and to ask all kinds of things from Allah, all these things. And the Saudis do not like it at all. It is against the Saudi creed. So when they left, when the Shia left, they took bulldozers and they bulldozed the whole place destroyed all the tombs, and the whole thing today is piles of sand, and nobody really knows where, who was where, and the whole thing is totally destroyed. Until this very day, and this happened like 12 years ago, until this very day, the Iranians demand that the Saudis bring this Baqi cemetery to the status quo ante. Means the way how it was until 12 years. How can you do it? To reconstruct the whole thing, to bring all there are no bones anymore after 1,000 years, but to bring all the limestones to the same place. Forget it, everything is destroyed, everything is broken. Okay? But the Iranians demanded the Saudis reconstruct this cemetery. To that extent, this tension between these two countries, even to these things. To some, the bad blood, which is between Saudi Arabia and Iran, actually influences other parts of the Middle East. Because if we side with Saudi Arabia against Iran, now you can understand why Saudi Arabia will befriend even the Satan. If the Satan can save them from the wrath of the Iranians, carrying the memory of who knows how many years, how they were defeated, how they sold to slavery, and all the parts of the problems which they have between them, Sunni, Shia, and Persians, Arabs, and all these things. So it's not a wonder that why the Saudis are looking for any friend in the world, even Jews, means the Israelis, could be tolerated and accepted vis-a-vis this rule, as they call it in Arabic, the shed, the demon, which they, the way in which they see the Iranians. This is why the Saudis were so furious about the 2015 agreement about the, what Obama made, the agreement about the nuclear issues. They were furious. And don't forget, the Saudis are much more vulnerable than us. First of all, we have a buffer zone between us and Iran, Iraq and Jordan. Okay? Saudi Arabia has no buffer zone. They are much more closer to Iran, much more vulnerable vis-a-vis Iran than we are. Our oil and gas are still in the sea. Okay, this is one thing. Second thing, according to all kinds of foreign media, Israel has, let's say, some nuclear facilities, nuclear weapons, I have no idea. But according to foreign media, Israel has. Saudi Arabia doesn't have it. So definitely Israel has some kind of deterrence vis-a-vis Iran, which the Saudis do not have. Okay? So they, for good reasons, feel much more vulnerable than us when it comes to Iran. But you see us screaming and shouting about this agreement. Netanyahu is actually going to the American Congress in spite of the fact that Obama didn't like it at all, and we behave a totally different way. Did you ever hear the Saudis talking about this agreement? Very rarely, if at all. Why? How can you explain it? Here, culture comes to the game. We, small nation, persecuted, massacred, Holocaust, whenever we feel a problem, we talk about it. We shout, we scream, and we run away finally, as Jews in France are doing today, as others maybe will do in the future. Okay, whenever we sense a problem, anti-Semitism, danger, we run away, and for good reasons. And we shout and scream beforehand. Saudis are Bedouins. In the Bedouin culture, you keep poker face at any cost. You cannot show your emotions if you are a man. Because if you start shouting and screaming just like the Jews, you are being viewed as a woman. Forgive me. But this is how your image is. And a man in a Bedouin society, the last thing on earth which he will allow himself is to be viewed and considered and viewed as a woman. Only because he shouts and screams. He keeps façon. He will the song can be tremendous in his soul, in his heart, but he will say nothing. He will keep his poker face. He will find a way how to tell you things. When this agreement, the JCPOA, was signed, immediately I started to read the Saudi newspapers. You can find them online, you can read them very easily. All they had is reportage. Agreement was signed. I didn't see any one of the ruling family give an op-ed about this. And this is what I waited for. To see somebody who is from the core of the regime speaks, talks, writes about this. I waited a day, looked, found nothing. 2 days, nothing. 3 days, nothing. Only after 4 days, which is very long time, a guy named Bandar Ben Sultan wrote a little article. Bandar Ben Sultan, to remind you, was the Saudi ambassador to Washington, D.C. for something like 30 years. He was the oldest ambassador to D.C. Therefore, by the way, he had all kinds of official assignments, like representing all the ambassadors in official events of Washington, D.C., like inauguration of a president, all these things. He was the one because, as we call it in Hebrew, Skan Hasegel Diplomati. He was both old and the most years in office. So he was the one, and he knew Washington, D.C., without even seeing it. He knew all the politicians from the Republicans, from the Democrats. He knew them all. And he went to pension like 4 or 5 years ago, and he became the advisor to American affairs to the king, because what he knows, nobody knows. He is the one who wrote an article in a website named Ilaf about how the Saudi family or Saudi ruling family views this JCPOA. He wrote, very short, like 4 sentences. He wrote something like this. Whatever we have to say about this agreement, we have already said. Where? When? No. Whatever we have to say in the future, we'll say in the future. Great. Very informative. As for now, I only want to draw my readers' attention to something which the old fox of the American diplomacy, Henry Kissinger, once told me. ... Henry Kissinger told me, America's enemies should fear America. America's friends should fear America even more. End of quote, end of article. This is what the Saudi regime had to say about the JCPOA. Now, if you really look at it from the Arab mind, what does it say actually? It says, you, the Americans, you are not human beings. You are not human beings. Because if your enemies have to fear you less than your friends, something very profound is wrong in your behavior, in your soul. Your friends should fear you more than your enemies? Excuse me? What kind of people are you? And this actually is what he said. If you really look into this expression that your enemies should fear you less than your friends, or your friends should fear you more than your enemies. But this is what he said. This was the whole article, which was written by somebody who was very close to the Saudi king after the signing of this JCPOA. This is what they think about America. We say that America threw us or to others under the bus. Okay, if you have, well, I don't like to be thrown under the bus, but if somebody doesn't like you, he throws you under the bus. At least he is consistent. He hates you and he throws you under the bus. But if you are but what if you are his best friend? Okay, this is what they say. We are your friends. We gave you oil in the years before you increased your production. We were loyal to you. We never were with others. We never juggle in politics between you and others. And this is what you do to us? This is what you do to us? To give us as an easy prey for the Iranians who can run forward with a nuclear program against us? Okay, this is what they say about America. And I'm not sure that today, even though Trump went out of this agreement and the sanctions on Iran, they don't see actual actions against Iran. Even when Iran attacks tankers in international waters. This is something which the Saudis are not yet convinced that America is going to do something serious against Iran. This is why they stick to us. Because between America and us, they think that we are more likely to do something against Iran than America. Even Trump. Okay? This is what explains their attitude to us in the recent years vis-a-vis the attitude to Trump. Of course, they love him, but they want to see him doing something in addition to sanctions. But sanctions, as fierce as they can be, yet have not yet succeeded to topple any country in the world. North Korea is under very heavy sanctions for many years. North Korea is now alive in kicking, alive in killing. Okay? Russia today is under sanctions because of the annexation of the Crimean Peninsula. So what do you see? The Russians are crawling and licking people's feet because of the sanctions. Okay, countries can. How many years South Africa lived with sanctions? Okay, so sanctions are not an immediate tool. And here, the clock ticks every 4 years in the United States of America. Is everybody sure that Trump will be re-elected? Or somebody from his party? America is a pendular system. Every 4 or 8 years, we have a totally different approach. We had Reagan, then we had Clinton. No, Clinton. Then we had Bush the father. Then we had no, after Reagan, Carter, Jimmy Carter. Okay, the American system, then Clinton, then Obama, then now you have Trump. The system in America is a pendulum. Pendulum. Once you have Democrat and the Republican, and the more Republican the Republican is, the more Democrat the Democrat is. Okay, the amplitude of this pendulum gets bigger and bigger. And could be that the result of Trump will be somebody like Sanders, if not Sanders himself, as kind of a reaction to what Trump did to those who hate him. Resentment. This is what I mean. So the Saudis, when they see what happens in America, they cannot rely on them. Maybe for 4 years, another 4 years, what will be afterwards? Okay, Israel leans to the right, more and more. So Israel, at least from this political point of view, can be relied on, much more than America. And this is how they view, or how they analyze politics in Israel vis-a-vis politics in the United States. Therefore, Israel is much more reliable in their eyes than America. Because America, you know what happens today, you don't know what happens tomorrow. And if during the 4 years, the Congress and or the Senate is being occupied by the other side, so the president becomes a lame duck. So he cannot act as much as he likes when it comes to global politics. So this is how they analyze, and could be that they have a point. When they see America as some kind of, I wouldn't say paper tiger, but definitely a country which you, as Saudis, they, as Saudis, find it very hard to rely on. That's why Israel, when it comes to compare all kinds of parties in the world, Israel is viewed, in my view, much more liable. First of all, it lives here. Secondly, hated by the Iranians, and the Iranians keep saying death to Israel. So, and death to America as well. But America apparently is not so reliable. So, this is why this how we can explain the relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, of course, as well, the recent years. Ladies and gentlemen, if I try to sum this part of the world, what happens here, we cannot escape the feeling that culture, history, memories, stereotypes play very, very significant role, definitely compared to the role of these issues in Western societies, Western politics, Western countries. For this, we have to learn the languages, the culture, the history, the sociology, and in many cases the anthropology of societies in the Middle East. Unfortunately, politics are being shaped by people, politicians, who know very little about many things. And this is actually what characterizes politicians in Western countries, this country included. Politicians, unfortunately, have to deal with so many issues at any given moment. Infrastructure, health system, education, security, budget, so many distinct things. How can one man, as bright as he can be, control all these things with knowledge? They are addicted to advisors. What do the advisors do? They go to Wikipedia and they read there. I'm telling you, I'm serious. This is what advisors, politicians are doing. They go to Wikipedia, they look for something, and they give the data to the politician in the car when he runs to some meeting or some interview. This is what, and I know because some politicians do call me instead of Wikipedia to ask them all kinds of stupid questions about things which they are going to be asked in a few minutes. Okay? So I give them, and then I hear myself speaking from the throat. Okay? This, unfortunately, but this is what they do, because they have to run all the time to all kinds of things within one day. If you look at the planner of a politician here in the States, in Europe, you see that in one day the man takes part in at least 10 meetings, which are totally different issues, totally different topics, and he has to be ready to every one of them. No one can do it. No one can be prepared for 10 discussions about 10 different issues every single day. Okay? So this is unfortunately. And these people are very mediocre when it comes to Middle Eastern issues, and their decisions are according to their knowledge, which is very shallow in most cases. Unfortunately, the Middle East suffers from politics which are being shaped by such people. And this is why the Middle East is such a problematic region, suffers from so many conflicting policies shaped by so many uninformed people who control the world. Ladies and gentlemen, when this area, when I see what happens in this region, in the Middle East, I become much more optimistic. Why? Because when I see around us the mayhem in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Libya, in Sudan, in Yemen, and even stable countries like Egypt, Algeria, Jordan are on the edge of the mayhem, I become much more optimistic. because Israel, in spite of all the problems, which we all know about, is a villa in the jungle. And the jungle is a jungle not because of the trees or because of the beasts. The jungle is a jungle because the beasts are actually eating each other. While in the villa, people live with each other. Of course, we do have problems, especially today with the Ethiopian community, which blocked the whole country. I have no idea how I'm going to get home. But I'm optimistic. When I see Israel, even when the roads are blocked against the law, and the police, all it does is trying to drag people out of the junctions. This is a country which can live forever. Because here we don't kill each other as they do in the jungle. In the villa, people live. And I think that when our brethren who live in Britain, in the United States, especially in France, when they see today what happens in their countries, we have to be prepared for a massive wave of aliyah in the coming years. Ladies and gentlemen, prices of real estate in the 5 towns. You know what the 5 towns are? Netanya, Ramat Beit Shemesh, Ra'anana, Efrat, and Jerusalem. You know why they are the 5 towns? 90% of the English-speaking Olim live in these 5 towns. I don't know if you know this. I think 90, if not 90, 85%. Okay, this is today what the 5 towns are. Real estate in these 5 towns will rocket up when people realize that the earth is shaking too firmly in Britain and in the United States of America, to which I dedicated my most recent op-ed in Arutz Sheva about the United States, which is not anymore the promised land and not anymore the safe haven. לא עוד הארץ המובטחת, and לא עוד הארץ המאובטחת. Because what happens in the States today is big fear from anti-Semitism and from terror. What happened in Pittsburgh, in Sukkot, and in Poway, in Pesach, changed dramatically the way how American Jewry views America. Israel becomes a safe haven after what happened. But this is another topic. I highly encourage you to read this op-ed on Arutz Sheva in my blog of this website. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. If there are some questions, I'll take them. Yes, ma'am.
I know that the majority, large majority of the population in Qatar is Sunni. So why do they support Iran?
Not only Sunni, the Qatar is not only Sunni, there are also Wahhabis.
So why
Amazing.
do they support Iran?
Why do you support Iran? First of all, Qatar and Iran share the biggest gas field in the world. Half and half. Which is more or less here. This is the gas field, the biggest in the world, which they own together. Qatar has 350,000 people, citizens. Iran has almost 80 million. This is why Qatar can live on this oil and on this gas field by itself, while Iran needs much more than this. Okay? But they share it half and half. And the Qataris are afraid that if they say something against the Iranians, The Iranians will tell them, okay, go away and take the whole thing for us. Why? Because we want. Sue us. Or do something to us. So the Qataris behave very nicely. Second thing, Qatar has a Jazeera. And Al Jazeera makes all the Arabs angry, especially the Arab regimes angry. Because Al Jazeera keeps criticizing the Arab regimes, including the Saudi one. So this is another thing. The third thing is a very, I would say, famous rule, which we all know from English, which says, the more you have in common with somebody, the more the chances that you get in trouble with him. This is a very, very clear rule in sociology. You know, if I walk in the street and I see a woman walks towards me, what are the chances that I get in trouble with this woman? Zero. I have nothing with her, she has nothing with me. What are the chances that I get in trouble with my wife? Okay? Because with my wife I share too many things on which we can fight. Okay? This is why the more you have in common with somebody, the more are the chances that you get in trouble with that somebody. But yeah, another example, if a man walks towards me in the street, what are the chances that I get in trouble with this man? Nothing. But what is the chance that I get in trouble with my brother if we run the same business? Like 100%, okay? At least. Okay, so this is what I mean. Since Qatar and Saudi Arabia are so much alike, live on the oil, Wahhabis, Sunnis, they fight. Because they have much in common. Yes, sir.
You made very clear in your references to the recent aggression that Iran committed in the Gulf of Hormuz and then on. I would like to know what do you think the United States should have done in that situation?
Well, what I think is definitely influenced by what I want. I definitely would like to see United States devastates without casualties, devastates the nuclear program of the Iranians to begin with. Let's leave the oil and gas so they can make living, but the nuclear facilities, in my humble view, should be wiped off the face of the earth. And if there are some facilities under the ground, these facilities should be attacked by some force which can go into the facilities and blow them from within. This is what should have been done. In my humble view, there are some countries which plan exactly this. In my view, this plan should be carried out already, before Trump leaves office. Yes.
In your view, what are the possibilities of regime change in Iran?
Regime change in Iran, in my humble view, is inevitable. No dictatorship survived forever. The Soviet Union fell after 70 years. Other empires fell after more or less years. It will happen. When? How? Nobody can predict. Because Iran suffers from some genetic problems which many other empires in the past suffered from. Let me show you. This is Iran. Iran is, the population of Iran is a combination of some 30 ethnic groups. The Persians are in the center, and the periphery are Azeris, Kurds, Luris, Arabs, there's also Arabs, Baluchis, those who are rebelling against the regime, Turkmens, and others as well. Groups which were never heard, like the Qashqais as well. They never became one nation, just like the Soviet Union. People were citizens of the Soviet Union, but the Kazakhs remain Kazakhs, Uzbeks, Georgians, Ukrainians, Belarus, Estonians, Latvians, Lithuanians, all these Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, Tajikis, all these remain what they were. And this is why the Soviet Union fell apart, according to ethnic lines. Czechoslovakia was divided according to ethnic lines, the Czech Republic and the Slovak Republic. Yugoslavia fell apart, also the Serbs and the Croats and the others. Will Scotland forever be part of the United Kingdom? Really united with the Welsh and the Irish? Will Catalonia forever remain in Spain after they almost succeeded to get out of it? So ethnicity still is alive and kicking, also in Iran. And this is why, at the end of the day, Iran will fall apart, inevitably. When it will happen, how it will happen, what will be the cost in blood, I have no idea. But this is the writing on the wall. Yes, sir.
When you're talking about countries falling apart, how do you see, and I know that this is really not part of the subject, but how do you see the European Union
Well, the
carrying
European,
What's the question?
if I talk about ethnicity and countries which fall apart, how do I view the European Union? Well, the European Union has another problem today, which is the Islamic migration. And the Islamic migration actually changes the whole human landscape of Europe, the whole culture. I actually highly recommend a book which was written recently by a British writer, Douglas Murray, The Strange Death of Europe. It was, for those who prefer it in Hebrew, it was translated to Hebrew and was published like a couple of months ago. המוות המוזר של אירופה. This book is actually a continuation of what Melanie Phillips wrote 14 years ago, Londonistan. And if you want, Eurabia of Bat-Yaor, and other books which describe how Europe actually commits a mass cultural suicide by allowing millions of migrants who do not become Europeans, who preserve their culture, and actually and openly declare that they come to Europe in order to take Europe over and to change its culture dramatically. It can happen in 10 years, 20, 50, 100 years, doesn't matter. Because the Quran, there is a verse in the Quran which says that in Allah ma'asabirin, Allah is with those who have patience. And they have a lot of patience. Thank you so much. Have a nice, jolly evening.